Hello firearms friends, Joel Colander here for Rock Island Auction Company. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, it's preview day. It's Thursday, it's preview day, it's my favorite day of all days. We're open to the public, so please come see us. If you can't, of course you can check out all the listings for the May premiere, May 13th, 14th, 15th premiere firearms auction at rockislandauction.com. I'm gonna show you something that's coming up for sale tomorrow, specifically in lot 381, and it is a Smith & Wesson 19.4 double action 357 Magnum that belongs to none other than old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board, the Sultan of Swoon, the voice, Francis Albert Sinatra. How cool is that? I try to show you guns that I think are cool, and for me, Frank Sinatra is, well, he's the bee's knees. He got me into jazz standards when I was in high school and in part into singing. So when you combine Smith & Wesson 19s with Frank Sinatra, it was a gun that I had to show you that's coming up for sale tomorrow. If you're not familiar with this Smith & Wesson 19, they started life in 1955 as the Combat Magnum. Of course, in 1957, they changed those. It became the Model 19. They made this on their K frame, so a little smaller, a little bit lighter than their N frame, which is what their registered Magnums were built on, which of course then became the Model 27 that same year. 6-shot 357 Magnum. These big fat wood grips to get a purchase on that powerful 357 cartridge. There's not many revolvers I like better than a Smith & Wesson 19, so pretty pumped to have this one in-house. Now, if that wasn't enough, this specific Smith & Wesson 19 is what's known to collectors as a pinned and recessed variation. So if we flip the cylinder open, you can see it still has the recessed portion of the cylinder for the rims of the cartridges. That is a throwback to the early days of the 357 Magnum cartridge, where they thought the cylinders were gonna need that extra bit of safety to secure those cartridges as much as possible. That feature would go away, or it would come through 1981, it went away in 1982. And of course, the pinned barrel, you can see right above here where the barrel and the frame meet, there is a pin that goes through, again, for strength's sake for these big powerful cartridges. And that was also a feature that went through 1981 and discontinued in 1982. That is a feature very desirable to collectors. The pin, the recessed, even though there's not a huge difference in strength, or some say even any difference of strength from the revolvers made in 81 to 82, but it's still a variation that Smith & Wesson collectors look for. Now, of course, the appeal behind this Smith & Wesson 19.4 isn't a small pin in the frame or recessed cylinder. It's, of course, Frank Sinatra. Now, the funny thing is, it's not documented who gave this revolver to Frank Sinatra. I mean, it is kind of documented. It's in here on gold, inscribed on the side plate. It says, "To the boss, FS from Charles." But we don't know who Charles is, officially. If I had to guess, personally, I would say that is Frank Sinatra's lead trumpeter, Charles Turner. Now, Charles Turner played for about anybody who is anybody in the day. You're talking Ella Fitzgerald, Wayne Newton, fellow members of the Rat Pack, so Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin played for him, and even Robert Goulet all had Charles Turner playing for him. But Charles Turner played for Frank Sinatra from 1975 to 1983, and that's about the window that this revolver was given, or was presented to Frank. So given their close working relationship, the time that this revolver was presented, that's a pretty darn good guess. In fact, the two men were so close that after Turner was done playing for Sinatra in 1983, in 1984, he wanted to make his own solo album of Frank Sinatra hits. And he asked Frank if that was okay. And Frank basically replied something in the tune of like, "Is it okay? I'll direct the orchestra." The resulting album, called What's New, didn't reach any commercial success, but jazz enthusiasts are pretty enthusiastic about it. And so Frank Sinatra owned this Smith & Wesson Model 19.4 for some time before he eventually would turn and present it to another trusted friend, his longtime co-producer and manager, Hank Cattaneo. Now, Hank and Frank, there's a duo, were both known to collect toy trains, and they were both known to collect firearms. Frank Sinatra especially was known later on in his career to concealed carry while performing on stage. They kept an Uzi on their private jet. He has a golden Uzi that was presented by the Israeli Prime Minister, and of course, he's presented revolvers and handguns as a known firearms enthusiast from any number of places, from performance venues to close personal friends. And so knowing Cataneo as a fellow firearms enthusiast, Frank presented Hank with this Smith & Wesson 19-4. Except Frank Sinatra didn't really present it to Hank. Despite his tough guy image and all that bravado that's there, Frank was really uncomfortable giving people gifts. And so he actually had his longtime assistant, Alvina Joubert, I may be butchering that pronunciation entirely, but he had her present the gun to him. He said, Vine's got something for you, go get it. And of course, comes out with one or maybe multiple revolvers in that presentation. So there you have it, folks. A classic Smith & Wesson 19, an American classic of jazz and stage Frank Sinatra. And it's on day 1, lot 381, in our May premiere firearms auction. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep that powder dry.